I have with me faculty for various subjects for UPSC examination. In today's discussion, we are going to explore high yielding topics specifically for UPSC Prelims examination. As you know, we have 100 more days for UPSC Prelims, and the students who are preparing for UPSC examination, though they have focused equally on the Prelims and Mains till now, in the last 3 months, it is high time to focus specifically on the Prelims. Even the candidates who cleared Mains or went to interview in their previous attempts, even they have to focus on the Prelims in the last 3 months because Prelims has become very dicey. In today's discussion, we will be mainly listing out the important topics in each subject that you have to focus. The reason is, as you know, in UPSC, syllabus is actually vast. It appears to be vast, but in fact it is limited. And you cannot focus equally on all topics. If you do that, you will not be able to finish the syllabus. So out of all the topics, there are few topics you have to identify specifically based on last few years of prelims exams questions. For example, each of the faculty here will list out those topics which are repeated or the themes repeated in the UPSC prelims in the last 7 to 8 years, so that you can spend more time on those topics and less time on other topics. And we are not dealing current affairs separately. When the faculty talks about their subject, along with the static part, they'll also focus on how current affairs for that subject shall be dealt with. So, I will be starting with science and technology. Friends, if you observe science and technology, in the last 5 to 6 years, the focus areas have actually shifted. If you observe specifically, though in the UPSC they mentioned syllabus clearly, I would say the high focus areas in the last 5 years were biotechnology, diseases, vaccines, virus. The main area, biology part, is number 1 according to me. Number 2 is the information technology and communication technology, the second area of focus. Third is space technology. And all the remaining topics like nanotechnology, robotics, the defense, missiles, very few questions are coming from those areas. Coming to the biotechnology, you have to specifically focus on areas like the DNA, RNA, and the Nobel Prize winning topics like stem cells, the chromosomes, the reproductive technology, and also agriculture technologies. Specifically, they're focusing more genetically modified crops, genome sequencing, even in general genetic engineering. So these are the topics mostly they're asking. If you observe last 8 years papers, on these topics only repeatedly questions have come. And also the viruses. Maybe because of COVID, in the last few years, the focus was on viruses. Not only the COVID, but also retrovirus, enidovirus, adenovirus, and even the H1N1, traditional HIV virus, hepatitis B. So all these things focus was there. And diseases, not only the latest or newly surfaced diseases, but also traditional ones, like the vitamin deficiency diseases, the mitochondrial diseases, and the traditional chicken pox, smallpox, questions are coming on that. And vaccines, as you know, international organizations and even India, scientific community is spending enough time and they're actually pouring in a lot of money in research on the vaccines. And hence UPSC is also focusing on the same topic. The biofilm vaccines or the vector vaccines, all types of vaccines where research is going on. So the focus is where research is going on, where much funds are coming in, what international communities are focusing on. Based on those things, you have to specifically focus on such kind of viruses, diseases, vaccines, or biotechnology. Now coming to the second area of focus that I would say is the information technology and communication technology. Of course, from 1990s onwards, UPSC is focusing on that. But in the last 6 to 7 years, more questions are coming from it. In information technology specifically, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, the blockchain, and all SaaS services, software as services, all SaaS, the cyber security specifically, because in the last few years, you might have observed the cyber threats like WannaCry, Petya, ransomware, the Eternal Blue. Because of that, questions are on that mostly. Coming to communication technology, specifically, they're most focused on the new technologies. The Wi-Fi and Li-Fi differences, the long-term evolution, LTE or VoLTE, LTE and VoLTE, and the augmented reality and virtual reality, the general OLEDs and the virtual light communication technology, along with the traditional GPS and small projects like Project Loon. So these are the focus areas basically. So when you read in the newspaper also, in the newspaper, though a lot of topics come in science technology, you have to specifically focus on this pattern, these type of technologies. For example, if you go to the third major area, space technology, traditionally questions were only on the launch vehicles like PSLV, GSLV, the cryogenic engine, satellites, cartosat like that. But nowadays, along with the space missions like Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan, Aditya, Voyager, Messenger, along with these things, there's also focus on theory, space technology theory, fundamentals, like the Einstein's general theory of relativity, the theory of relativity, and the string theory, standard model, singularity. The questions are actually been coming in these areas which is not expected. Previous UPSC never used to ask the theory part. One application part they used to focus, but now theory also. The biotechnology, as I told you, the theory of biotechnology also they are asking. So don't think that UPSC will ask one application part, not really. Even the theory from which application arises is also being focused. So the first, biotechnology and biology, diseases, vaccines. Second, information technology and communication technology, as told you. The third is space technology. I would say these three are the most important areas. All the other areas, friends, though questions come randomly or not to questions, you don't need to focus much. Of course, you have to spend some time because UPSC is unpredictable. Suddenly they can change the focus area. However, as per the present pattern, you have no option but to divide the time giving more to the focus areas. Other things like, for example, nanotechnology is there. Except the carbon nanotubes, no, nothing much have come. Missiles is there. Except that FOB, the fractional orbital bombardment technology, nothing really have come. Similarly, the drones in the defense technology, nothing much have come. But last but not least, in the general questions also, in the random questions also, they're focusing on general awareness like in the biscuit packet, what are the components? In a plastic water bottle, what can you store? Or in the chocolate or soap, what kind of acids are used? Or fatty acids, general things which generally we will not read from newspapers, which you have to observe in general. When you hold a biscuit packet to take a chocolate, you generally read the ingredients. Those things also if is asking. However, you cannot research on those things. General observation, try to increase your observation, which will be useful in the long term also. So I would like to tell this about science technology. Now friends, when we move on to other faculty members also, the idea that we are trying to give is only broadly the important topics. For example, if you observe, we are not analyzing the topics here. That is not the purpose of this session. Just listening out. So the candidates who are starting preparation for last 100 days, they actually can, after going through this video, they actually can focus on those areas with that kind of mindset. So now, science technology, geography, polity, economy, history, environment and IR. These are the 7 subjects for UPSC Prelims paper 1. So we are the 7 faculty discussing about it. Now we will go to the next one faculty and we will ask him what he thinks about the important areas from his subject. Now going on to history, from which most questions are coming in the recent few years. Sukiran sir with us. He is the history faculty at Sarat Chandra IAS Academy. Let us hear from him what you have to focus mostly in the history subject for prelims. Sir, please, what do you think are the important topics you have to focus on in history?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, there is a general trend which can be observed from the past 4 or 5 prelims question papers is that especially UPSC is moving towards ancient and medieval history than modern history. Previously, more focus was given on modern history, especially on Gandhian movements, revolutionary movements, working class movements, etc. But now there is a steady shift from the past 2 to 3 years towards moving towards ancient medieval history. So, according to me, I suggest that aspirants have to first focus on important topics in ancient history. So, I give a list according to my understanding after my observation of the previous question papers, which are important. So, first point, in ancient Indian history, about the Indus Valley civilization, important cities, and in which year they were excavated. the years need not be pivoted. They need not be they could not be questioned in the question paper, but a chronological order in which these Indus Valley cities were excavated, or the archaeologists who involved in the excavation and the significance of these cities. So especially significance part. Why Indus Valley civilization can be considered more significant than other ancient civilizations. So that kind of questions can be asked from Indus Valley civilization. Coming to the Vedic civilization, especially the differences part. What are the differences between Indus Valley civilization and Vedic civilization? And especially Vedic literature. I emphasize this point again and again. So Vedic literature, especially Vedas, Vedangas, and into how many parts each Veda can be categorized, can be divided into, and how many Upanishads are there. So these kinds of Vedic literature can be looked into, and after that, especially of all the topics in ancient Indian history, Buddhism and Jainism, especially Bodhisattvas, mudras of Buddha, and also great writers who wrote books on Buddhism, ancient writers or medieval writers, and important schools of philosophy, especially orthodox schools of Hindu philosophy, like Samkhya, Yoga, Nyaya. So these kinds of 6 schools of Hindu philosophy, which are orthodox, can also be asked, and especially schools of orthodox philosophy and their founders can also be asked to be matched. So this kind of questions can be asked according to me. And after that, I suggest to every aspirant to focus more on Kautilya's Arthashastra. So important political ideas and ideas regarding foreign policy doctrine of a ruler of a state. So these must be studied compulsorily because in the present international order, India is highlighting the ancient wisdom that we can learn from Arthashastra and Kautilya. So this can be very much emphasized. And later, Mauryan Empire, when it comes to Mauryan Empire's history, Ashoka's inscriptions. So what are the important details that are given in each and every inscription of Ashoka? That can be questioned, is having high probability, and also the causes for the decline, it can be taken lightly also, but most importantly, Arthashastra of Kautilya's Arthashastra and Ashoka's inscriptions can play a very important role. And also in the post-Mauryan era, few foreign invasions happened on India from Central Asia, like Shakas, called Indo-Scythians, or Hunas or Kushans. So no great details need to be studied at this point of time, but important rulers and their contribution, especially when it comes to Meander, or also called Milinda in Buddhist scriptures. So what was the book in which he was mentioned thoroughly, and also Vijayawada kind of a book was there. So these kind of ancient books in which political issues were mentioned, so they can be asked according to me. And later, Gupta times, in the Gupta times, so most important questions can be asked from topics like literature, great writers like Kalidasa and his writings, contributions of Aryabhatta, Varahamihira, these great astronomers and mathematicians. Questions can be asked from these topics. And in the ancient times, most important things are from Sangam literature, ancient Tamil history. A few details about these basics, not very great amount of details, but just details, small basic details must be clearly understood. Later, after ancient, this is the entire portion of ancient Indian history and the topics which must be revised thoroughly before going to appear for prelims examination. And in medieval Indian history, most importantly, Bhakti movement. I stress on Bhakti movement very much, especially Bhakti saints in Western India. Bhakti saints in Western India, and also Alvars and Nainars in South India, and also Bhakti saints like Ramananda, Kabir, Tulsidas in North India. Especially few questions are asked recently from Bhakti saints in Eastern India as well. So Western India, Tukaram. So Tukaram, these kinds of questions can be asked from Bhakti movement. And later, in the Delhi Sultanate time, especially schools of Sufism, various philosophical schools of Sufism, like Chishti school, like Wadriya school, so Naqshbandi school. So schools of Sufism, not in great detail, but the important founders, whether that Sufi movement comes under liberal movement or conservative movement. So these kinds of questions can be touched. And later, most importantly, temple construction, especially schools of temple architecture. So where details about these temple architecture, not only their physical features, but also examples of these schools of temple architecture. Like if you have to give few examples of Nagara style temple architecture and their sub schools. So Eastern sub school, or Central Indian sub school, or Western Rajasthanian sub school. So these kinds of examples can be asked in prelims, and most importantly, paintings. When it comes to paintings, which kind of school of painting is prevalent in a particular area, and these kind of questions can be asked in matching as well. So these are most important. But there is one folly that many aspirants commit is that, so whenever they are preparing for history, they just go get into the topics of get into the details of rulers, wars, battles, time periods. But most focus should be given on art, culture, architecture, science and technology in ancient India. So science and technology plays a very important role in gaining score in ancient medieval Indian history. And last topic in medieval Indian history is especially revenue settlement system, revenue reforms, revenue policies followed by Akbar, and before that by other Mughal rulers. So these kind of revenue policies, which kind of changes they have made. So these can be asked in medieval Indian history. But when it comes to modern Indian history, I suggested to all the aspirants to focus more and more on art, culture, architecture, especially temple architecture, and also stupas, rocket caves, stupas, and paintings, especially Ajanta, Ellora, and Kailashnath temple kind of architecture. So these are core areas according to me. Only after completing, I suggested to all the aspirants that only after completing art, culture, architecture, paintings, etc., then get into political details. Okay. Then also social conditions must be focused more than on just simply battles which can be by headed. So when it comes to modern Indian history, so I observe that in the recent past, especially the early part of modern Indian history, which we call early modern history, the rise of foreign trading companies like the Portuguese, Dutch, French, and the English, their genesis. So in which time period they had built their ports, cities, etc. in India, and also causes for the decline of Mughal rule, the later Mughal emperors, and how they were directly connected to the decline and fall of Mughal empire. So this should be studied. For example, take one Mughal emperor and which important things that happened during that time. So at the time of Battle of Plassey, who was the Mughal emperor? At the time of Battle of Buxar, who was the Mughal emperor? At the time of Nadir Shah's invasion on India, who was the Mughal emperor? So these kind of focus should be given when it comes to the decline and fall of the Mughal empire. And when it comes to the establishment of East India Company's rule in India, most important concepts are the Charter Acts, the regulating acts, and also important governors general who introduced new political policies like subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, and most importantly, which Indian states entered into the system of subsidiary alliance first, chronological order. And when students study East India Company's wars that they fought against Indian rulers, like Anglo-Maratha wars, Anglo-Mysore wars, or Anglo-Sikh wars, so important focus should be given on the chronology. So which war happened first and which happened later? Who was the Governor General at the time of Second Anglo-Maratha War, or who was the Governor General at the time of Third Anglo-Maratha War? So these kind of very essential details must be noted and they must be remembered thoroughly. And later, especially when it comes to 1857 revolt, So important focus must be given on who were the leaders of 1857 revolt in various regions. Take for example in Bihar, Azamgarh, Bareilly, or Gwalior, or Lucknow, Kanpur, Delhi. So who were the leaders? So board can ask you questions about matching the leaders with their regions. So these kind of focus should be given. And later, when it comes to the post 1857 history of modern India, then important focus should be given on the pre-Congress political associations. So pre-Congress political associations and their founders. Not great details and in-depth analysis of these movements need not be studied, but the very essential details about the founders of these early political associations must be noted down and they must be remembered. And when it comes to the era after founding of the Congress, I expect some great national figures, which who are not given proper attention by the students or by historians in general, can be asked. I call this outlying characters or lesser noted characters like Chidambaram Pillai. Or especially Subramanya Bharati, Chidambaram Pillai, or great historians or great freedom fighters who came from Assam, who came from Bengal, who came from Punjab, who were less noted. So these questions can be asked according to me. And most importantly, freedom fighters or early Congress leaders, moderates or extremists, they published, they organized, they edited various journals, newspapers. So these journals, newspapers, their founders and editors, so they can also be asked in questions like matching. And when it comes to Gandhian movements, only 4 Gandhian movements must be studied briefly. So only in mains they can be asked in great detail, but not in prelims. So these 4 Gandhian movements are first one, Rowlatt Satyagraha, Khilafat Non-Cooperation Movement, Civil Disobedience Movement, and Quit India Movement. And I generally expect that more, if at all, importance is given to India after 1920. What happened in India after 1920? Then certainly some questions can be asked from the later phase of the independence movement from 1940 to 1947. After the Second World War started in 1939. So these are the important questions, important topics that have to be studied thoroughly. But again, I am emphasizing one point, that is basics, very essential facts, basics, and which are the topics, the concepts which are not covered or which are not highlighted must be studied thoroughly in order to have some advantage in prelims. That is about modern Indian history, sir, and also ancient medieval history. Thanks.
Sir, to add to that, actually, if you follow what Sukiran sir said broadly, there is a theme which is called UPSC in the last few years. Along with that, slightly there is an orientation towards important facts in ancient medieval history, important organizations. What do we call tax in the Mughal time? Some small facts they are focusing, which was not there in UPSC before. Somehow they are doing it, and also in the modern India also post 1942, because most students are actually focusing till Quit India movement. After the cabinet mission plan, Rajgopalachari plan, the small things. So those 1942 to 47, that also UPSC is focusing mostly. Like how Sir said, ancient medieval you have to focus. Previously, students used to leave the ancient medieval. Only modern is enough previously. Out of 20 questions in history, 40 are from modern history. But now ancient medieval are coming almost like 9 to 10 questions from ancient medieval. So you have to focus. There is no other thing for you. Also, post-independent history, which is not there in the prelims, which is there only in the mains, but they're asking questions. Recent 1 or 2 questions coming. When SBI has formed, State Bank of India, chronological order, formation of SBI and other organizations, that also they are focusing slightly. And one last point I want to tell you is, friends, history you have to read traditional style books only. But like how Sir said, the lesser known people, lesser known topics, you will not be able to answer them. Fortunately, if you know your answer, but just for that, don't spend more time. For example, some magazine has come, some journal has come in the exam. For that, you don't need to buy out all the magazines published by all the people. Don't do that. It's impossible. You be aware that for answering 1 to 2 factual questions, you should not spend too much of time. You have to balance all subjects. So, like how Sukiran sir said, Now, anyone wants to add something for history, or shall we move on to?
Just want to
Yes,
add one more point.
yes.
So, especially the accounts of foreign travelers in ancient and medieval history. So, from the time of Megasthenes, Fahian, Huan Sang to Francois Bernier and Tavernier in early modern history. So, all the details, small details of if you have time, if you have inclination, then please read Themes in Indian History, second book, chapter 1, only one chapter. It covers all the details of foreign travelers, their books, and important details given in these foreign foreign travelers journals and books. So it can be helpful for you in ancient medieval history. So that's it.
So anybody wants to add any point for science technology that I said, or history that Sar said? Any points, or shall we move on to the next subject?
In the history part, majorly the things what Sar have said, I want to add a few things. The thing is, majorly the UPSC focuses on the years, like 100 years it has completed, 50 years it has been done, 75 years of the thing, and 25 years it has been done. So these things, these movements will be focused on more. And the next part is tribal movements. So nowadays the tribal movements has been given more importance by our Prime Minister as well. So even PM Jajman scheme has been launched as well. So and they have released a document as well. Ministry of Culture has released a document regarding the unknown tribal leaders. So who has been in the in the national movement. So that has been also been released. So just go through those names and movements who have been involved. So just the thing is important for this. So that's the thing I want to answer.
Yes. Anybody wants to add any more points for science technology or history?
So one thing I want to add about science and technology is regarding the emerging technologies. So nowadays there is a lot of emphasis on blockchains, quantum computing, and the quantum encryption technologies. So I think we need to also take into account of all these emerging technologies and then consider them and integrate them into our preparation, because there is a lot of weightage nowadays regarding quantum technologies and also supercomputing missions that India is undertaking. So we need to look into that also, sir.
Yes, yes.
So for this, I want to add something.
Yes.
So for this, the ministry, every ministry is releasing its annual reports. So year-end reviews. So even Ministry of Department of Space has released the annual reports, and Ministry of Defence have also released the annual reports. So if you go through those annual reports, it's more than enough for the facts which has been in the news for the past 1 year. You don't need to go through in detail, because UPSC doesn't ask in detail. UPSC asks whether you know it or don't know. That's the thing UPSC focuses on. So that's bare minimum you need to do it. So
exactly. Like how Chandra said, whenever question comes from any topic which is not in traditional standard books, it means the topic has come somewhere in current affairs, or the topic has come in the speech of President or Prime Minister's speech, the topic has come. Hence, that is given in the UPSC. Though the topic is not there in the standard science, technology, or history books, it's not there. But it might have come in the annual reports, or it might have come because of the 100th year of that movement. That's why they might have asked it. Hence, that's how current affairs can be combined with history, mostly. So, next which subject shall we move on to? Which one do you think? History. You want to add a few points history? Okay.
Yes, with respect to history, prehistoric sites also very important, I think so. We need to remember the sites of Neolithic and Paleolithic and Chalcolithic also, and their pottery also. So there are high chances.
yeah, that is the least thing which is UPSC has already focused. So that may be focused now, because UPSC doesn't have the topics to focus on. Now it can dig into the old topics as well.
Yes, yes. The prehistoric paintings, Bhimbetka painting,
Yes,
those things.
yes.
Yeah. Now coming on to the polity, which actually is a most important focus area for UPSC. Traditionally, polity. More questions come from polity. Previously, polity questions used to come only from the standard books, Lakshmikant, etc. But nowadays, even the basic NCERTs, 6th to 10th class NCERTs, what is federalism, what is liberty, democracy, fundamental questions are also coming in polity. Now we have our faculty, Amit Chakravarti sir, who teaches polity here. He teaches polity, governance here. Sir, you please tell, what areas do you think for this year's prelims student have to focus mostly on? Of course, based on the last few years of prelims papers, as well as what you think the most important based on this year's current affairs also. Which topics of polity, more questions can come, so that they'll focus on those topics.
Thank you, sir. Sir, firstly, polity is a low-hanging fruit. Means the confidence that you have with respect to answering polity will translate into your ability to answer other questions in the prelims examination. So we have to answer the questions at least in 3 rounds, if not minimum 2 rounds. The first round 35 questions will have a major share from polity because these questions are the ones that are coming from conceptual clarity as well as the ability to get the facts, get it done at the single go. Means you need not visit the question multiple times. So firstly, coming to the questions with respect to polity, the important areas will always be the fundamental rights and DPSPs, where at least 5 questions come out of the 20 to 23 questions asked from polity. And second important area would be about the executive, whether it is union or state. And coming to the recent trends with respect to the this is also an election year and also the appointment of CEC. There has been recently a bill which has been passed with respect to the committee for the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner. So I think we have to get into the details of the committee and also the entire process of elections. And citizenship is also an important area for this particular year. Thirdly, the important area would always be about the local self-governments and also the constitutional obligations pertaining to the devolution of powers between center, state, federalism and also separation of powers. And apart from these areas, with respect to the office of governor, which has been continuously in use, with respect to the states of Tamil Nadu, Kerala or even few northern states, where the office of governor has been continuously has gone to Supreme Court also with respect to few judgments moving against the discretionary powers as mentioned under Article 163 and 200. So there can be a question that can be expected from the office of governor. And lastly, the anti-defection law, which is very much in use with respect to the Maharashtra's assembly, whether speaker is having the right to approve wholesale or retail defection to be translated into a new party, or whether the party which is joining, which is defected in 2/3 can take the symbol of the election, the symbol of their party without the permission of Election Commission of India. So these are the things which are very, very current, and UPSC may not ask these questions in prelims, but rather because these are in the news, we have to go back to the standard books which talks about the basic concepts or the elements which can be framed as a questions. And the other concept is, of late in last 2 to 3 years, the questions are being asked from CRPC and IPC also, where the question on parole or the question on bail have been asked. So these are the emerging areas. And lastly, out of the 20 questions, 5 questions would be in such a way that huge interpretations are possible. So even if 15 questions are done with confidence, that is a good number. And mostly the questions in polity are dealt with your memory or your ability to come down to the facts by elimination or logic, and third is intuition. So these 3 can simultaneously play in polity to get you at least 15 questions out of the 20 to 23 questions correct. And this will give you a positive thrust for attempting the other paper. So that is what I think.
Okay. Like sir, how you said that you talked about traditional areas as well as current affairs and expecting based on the major news of this year. So anyone wants to add any points to polity?
Sir, I want to add few points. So UPSC has a habit of thinking, like it asks the questions based on sometimes it asks the questions in mains. That theme will be repeated in the prelims as well. So if it's asked in the prelims, it will be repeated in the mains as well. So nowadays in the mains, what they are asking is the comparison of constitutions. Comparison of different constitutions has been asked in the mains. So next time it can be a prelims question as well. So the comparing the constitution is also an important topic which students need to focus on. So and UPSC nowadays has been mixing the topics, like president and governor, both the things are mixed and the question has been asked. So when students are studying the topics, they should study the union part and state part in a fusion manner rather than studying in a different manner. So that's how the work will be easier for the students. So that's how the comparison should be done by the students. That's how the polity can be cracked very easily. Because polity is a cakewalk for everyone. Everyone says that I am good at polity, but they will be giving easier questions only. But you need to crack the UPSC code. Then only you can answer those questions. So that's the thing I want to add.
Exactly. Polity, sometimes they give easy questions, but then students think that there may be some logic.
Yeah.
Students feel that UPSC is difficult, and the polity question cannot be that much easy.
Yeah.
And hence they'll go for wrong answer basically. That should not be done like how you said.
Yes, sir.
So anyone wants to add any theme of polity?
Yes, sir. I want to add one more point in politics, sir. We need to focus more on constitutional bodies and statutory bodies and regulatory bodies also, because the question may be on its composition and its powers and functions also. So that is the point I want to add, sir.
Particularly those bodies which are not only in the news this year but last year also. There is a trend UPSC is following. Any major thing that is coming in newspaper continues this year will not be asked in the same year. It will be asked in the next year UPSC Prelims. So anybody who is studying last year's current affairs, I don't suggest you to read all current affairs of last year. Only last year, out of all of current affairs, the major topics which have come in the paper for more than 10 times, those things you can actually study for this year Prelims. And another trend UPSC generally follows.
So even UPSC follows the same thing, like what I have suggested for history as well, same the acts. If the NHRC Act was in 1994 Act, so now it is 25 years, so 30 years. So obviously it will focus on those questions. So those type of acts also we need to focus on. So the acts and the bodies. So how Surya have said. So the same thing we need to focus on. The acts, the year which it has been formed, and whether it is a statutory body or an executive body. These type of questions are asked by UPSC. So if you know it is a statutory body, then take it as a statutory body. If you don't know it, just leave the question and come back, because the polity tempts you to put in the exam. So you don't get tempted with the polity because you feel it is easy, but it is not easier. UPSC doesn't make it easier for you. So that's how the polity plays with you. So don't be a toy in the UPSC's hand. So that's what I want to add for polity.
So anyone has a point or move on?
So, one other point I wanted to add regarding the polity is, sir mentioned a unique point, that is the intuition. So while reading polity, it is not about just mugging up the facts, it is about understanding the intuition, or simply put, the logic behind why a certain provision is a certain way. For example, so for the election of president, so think of who will be the returning officer, because for the election of president, both the houses will vote. So in that case, the presiding of the head of the Lok Sabha, the head of the Rajya Sabha will be the returning officers by rotation. So because both will be participating. So in such a case, or even in the case of vice president election, because even then both the houses will be participating in the election. So we need to understand that intuitive sense. So why there is such a provision, or sometimes what happens if you don't know the answer. Suppose there is an act. Suppose you don't know what is there in the act, but you can guess by the tendency of the government. Suppose there is a government, particular government in that year when the act was enacted. Even if you don't know, but you can guess through the mode of the nation or through intuitive guess. So that is something you have to be very aware while you are reading itself. So if you are reading the act, so understand what is the government or what is the mindset of the government that has been there while the act was enacted. Because that will help you in either eliminating the option if there is a chance of elimination, or it will help you in cutting down some options at least. So that intuition is something you have to work very hard on. Intuition doesn't come naturally. It will come through practice and through concentration and meditative approach. So that is what I want to say.
Exactly, like how you said, questions which we do not know exactly, but we can guess using intuition. Not only polity and history also, like how Sar said about the Chanakya's philosophy, though, or maybe Buddhist philosophy. Some of the options you may not know, right or wrong, but if you understand the Buddhist philosophy or Chanakya's ideas in general, if you understand, using the intuition you can tell that this line Chanakya cannot tell, eliminate it, or this theory Gautam Buddha cannot tell because his ideology is different. In that way, using your fundamental knowledge and intuition, you have to go ahead. You cannot answer the questions which exactly know. If you do that, out of 100, you cannot answer more than 40 questions. So, in polity, history, you have to use intuition. Based on what you know, you should be able to tell this may not be the reason. Okay? Okay, now, anybody wants to add any point?
Because some of the important things in ancient Indian history, especially with regard to religious ideas, religious philosophies, they became a part of conventional wisdom for all of us. Because as you already said, what Buddha might have said, so what Buddha preached in his teachings. So we can easily guess most of the ancient Indian history with regard to only religious philosophies. Guess can work very easily. So that's the only point.
Yes.
So one point I want to add. So when we are attempting questions which we don't know exactly, so we need to take an educated guess. So educated guess is not a guess because we need to have requisite education to take that guess. So again, the sir, as he pointed out, So some part of wisdom has been generalized that everybody would have known that has become common folklore for us. But when it comes to like niche topics that we don't know anything about, you have to be very careful while you are guessing, because it should be a guess based on some previous education rather than random chance. So that point should be always emphasized, that when we are taking guesses, because all of us who has given interviews or who have given prelims know the importance of taking educated guesses, but that should be based on proper education, proper logic. So how do you develop that logic is also another important part of UPSC story. That is through constant practice. So through constant practice, through meditative practice, where we focus on options. After the exam, after the practice test, we need to understand why this option is correct, why this option is wrong. So we can discuss with friends, so which logic is working, which logic is not working, because that is how you will be able to understand that intuition. So that intuition, which plays a very critical role, comes through practice of numerous questions, and then analyzing and understanding that question, which logic is working, which logic is not working. That is how you will develop such an intuition, which will be very helpful throughout the prelims exam, not only in polity, not only in history, but throughout the prelims exam. Because even if you talk to toppers, they'll be very frank in telling you that more than 40 questions nobody will know. After that, anybody has to do elimination, anybody has to do educated guesses. So again, I'm telling you, it's not random guess, it is an educated guess that people have cultivated through years of practice of test. So you practice multiple tests, you practice multiple questions, then you will develop that intuitive sense of education to take an educated guess. Again, I'm telling you in invented course, because education part is the main important part. We are not guessing here, we are taking an educated guess through our intuition that we have developed through years of practice, through multiple tests. So that I want to add.
Yes, that is very important. Friends, now coming to international relations, this year has been the year of international conflicts and several conferences. And geopolitically, there are a lot of changes. There are wars. Hence, you can expect more questions in IR. However, IR as a subject, you definitely need not spend as much time as you spend in polity, economy, history, geography, environment, etc. However, you should be very careful while reading the current affairs. However, you should also understand the pattern in which UP is asking questions from IR. So let us go to Kiran sir, who teaches international relations at our academy, and know what areas we may have to focus for this year prelims based on an understanding of last few years as well as current affairs.
So as Sir has pointed out that international relations you need to give less time. The reason being, pretty much most of the topics in international relations will be aligned with some other subject. That includes history, that includes economy. You will be reading them in those topics. For example, World Bank. You will be reading in anything of the prehistory of the history of the World Bank, everything you will read in economics. So for example, last year they have given the question on FATF. You basically read it in economics. So, and at the same time you are going to read it in current affairs also. So pretty much most of the international relations you are going to read in current affairs, you are going to get in current affairs as well as rest of the topics. So if you see, you can divide the international relations into bilateral relations and international organizations. As far as bilateral relations are concerned, please concentrate more on the India and its surroundings, because a lot of questions in the last few years or the last 5 years have been concentrated in that area. At the same time, as far as the international organizations are concerned, please concentrate more on the Central Asia, because the conflict zone is there. Also, please concentrate on the conflict zones. As far as this is concerned, also concentrate on the Red Sea conflict, the Middle Eastern conflict. These conflict zones, they have been asking questions for the last 3 years. And they are asking it in such a way that it's not about the impact. They are asking on have you clearly followed those conflicts or not. For example, they have asked you on the areas affected. Donbas, for example, last year they have asked on, they have given the territory and have said match it, and they have given a different country. So you have to have a clear understanding on that conflict to answer it. So this is another thing that you need to keep it in mind. And the international organizations, most of the international organizations, if any event is happening in India, please do concentrate on it, or any organization that India has recently joined in. Please keep it a point that you understand the old history of that organization, because India is newly joining into that organization. That organization has already achieved something. The motto of that organization, please go through that, because that is where they are going to hit you, not on what is currently happening most of the times. These are the few areas that you need to look into. Anyone want?
And the, like how he said, polity, economy, geography, history, all these subjects cover IR. For example, mostly geography questions. For example, continuously for 4 years they gave the countries bordering Mediterranean Sea because of the conflict happening in the northern Africa and the refugees moving to the southern Europe. Similarly, now they may focus on the eastern Europe because of Ukraine and West Asia because of Israel, Palestine. So they'll focus on what are the border countries, what is the closest country, lengthiest border, which water body is close to that. Such kind of geographical aspects of IR, they will focus. Even the conflict places, they'll name some place in Africa. Are they under conflict right now? Some place Central Asia, West Asia. So are they in conflict right now? So this is geographical aspect. Economic aspect, like how you said the FATF or any economic agreements made by India with other countries, which will cover in economic news. And historically, for example, sometimes in the newspaper they will be covering the India and Persia trade. The trade will be covered in the newspaper. Hence, questions will come from that part of IR. And similarly with the polity, any agreement India makes with other countries, either bilaterally or multilaterally, they will be asked. So, you want to add anything?
So majorly in the IR part, as you have emphasized, like in the geography is the major thing which they focus on. Like they'll give the place and they'll give the country. So they'll give them as the following things as a country thing. So they'll try to confuse the students by giving, like in the 2022 they have asked like Idlib province and Syrian province. So they have given different names of it, the things which are in news. So because they are in the conflict zones, so obviously it will be in the news. So and then nowadays Red Sea and Yemen conflict is going on. The Red Sea, Houthi rebels, these things are going on. So they can ask the things related to the Yemen as well. So the provinces in the Yemen, they'll give the name of the province and they'll try to match you up. So these type of questions can be asked in it. And even as Sarah has emphasized, the international organizations, the recently joined ones and the recently hosted by India, like G20. G20 has been hosted by India and the initiatives launched by India in the G20 summit. Those things will be focused by India. So we generally read that G20 has been hosted by India. We don't dig further. UPSC digs further and asks those things which have been launched by India. And the international organizations which is headquartered in India. So recently Indian headquarters has been like the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. These things are hosted by India only. The headquarters is in India. So these things can be focused by UPSC. So then the recent summits which has been happening in India. So as Sarah has emphasized, these things can be focused by UPSC. This is the thing I want to add.
Sir, I want to add one point. So, regarding international relations, so we should not be viewed in isolation, as Kiran sir has pointed out. But the thing I wanted to emphasize is that recently India is trying to emerge as a global leader, especially representing the developing countries and trying to take up various leadership positions. So we need to focus into such areas. The first one is hosting the Global South Summit, and second one, emphasizing on UN changes. So changes in the structure of the governing of UN Security Council. So that areas we can look into, and we can also look into UN Charter to see what are the provisions that are there and what are the provisions India is trying to bring in to better represent the current state of the world. And regarding the global leadership, so as Charan sir pointed out, so International Solar Alliance and CDRI. Other than that, we also need to look into the neighborhood region, because the conflict of the China emerging as a major power in the Indian Ocean, so it is coming into our backyard. So India is trying to do various things regarding that, the promotion of the Lakshadweep Islands and the recent controversy with Maldives. So that has acquired a huge prominent new space. And other than that, we also need to look into our relations with Bangladesh. So India is trying to build nuclear power plants in Bangladesh along with Russian cooperation. And also we are trying to do a lot of things. For example, we have partnered with South Asian Satellite for all the SAARC countries except Pakistan. So we need to look into the science and technology provision in international relations. So we need to see all of this economy, polity, science and technology as different arms for conducting international relations and exerting Indian influence in such countries for Indian interest. So we need to look into all of these things. Other than that, we also need to look into the space. So cooperation in space with USA, with Russia, with Japan. So we should look into all of these areas. So what I wanted to emphasize is that international relations should be viewed as a holistic perspective rather than as an individual subject, as Kiran sir rightly pointed out.
Yes, yes, yes. Like how you said, in each subject we can learn about IR. That's
Yes,
what I
sir.
focus on. Now, let's come into geography. Coming to geography, compared to history and polity and economy, definitely geography questions are limited. However, it's easy to score in geography if you focus on specific areas. Now, Charan Teja sir, who teaches geography here at Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, would be throwing some light on the topics you need to focus for this year prelims. Yes.
Thank you, sir. In the geography part, so UPSC constantly been asking more than 10 questions. 10 to 15 was the average which has been UPSC asking. And what are the areas majorly UPSC is focusing on? There are major divisions in the geography. First is we come to the climatology part, which is majorly the conceptual part. So in the climatology part, it is majorly focusing on this climate, what are the different types of climate present around the world. It can be tropical savanna climate, it can be the monsoonal climate, it can be any climate, tropical tundra climate. So these type of climates has been asked by UPSC. They'll give the description of the thing and they'll ask the climatic zone. So these type of things UPSC is focusing on. And in the climatology part as well, the pressure systems like the pressure belts, which are the pressure belts present, what are easterlies, what are westerlies, how it is getting flown. So on the jet streams part, recently jet stream has been continuously in use. So this jet stream part has been in focus. Even the climatology in El Nino and La Nina part. El Nino and La Nina has been repeated by UPSC as well. And when it comes to India, Indian Ocean Dipole has been asked by UPSC and it can repeat the questions in geography as well. In terms of geography, they ask more on the analytical part. If you are good at the concepts, if your base is good in the geography, automatically you can solve the questions in geography. So that's how UPSC focuses on the climatology part. When it comes to the geomorphology part, geomorphology is the least touched area by the UPSC. They don't ask the terms related to geomorphology. They focus more on the interior of the earth and the plate tectonic part. So how the plate tectonics has been moving, and the earthquakes and the volcanoes in the volcanoes part, majorly they ask about the volcanic landforms. It has been created. It can be intrusive landforms, it can be extrusive landforms. That's how the matching can be given by UPSC and they try to fool you giving different terms for different things. So this is how in the volcanoes they can ask you. And when it comes to the different landforms, it can be alluvial landforms or it can be karst topography. So these type of things can be asked by UPSC because these are not touched by UPSC. If they try to touch it, it can be potential question because UPSC has limited pool of questions in geography because geography is not an evolving thing. Geography evolves millions of years. So that's how there are limited pool of things which UPSC has already asked. So these are the things which UPSC can focus on. So majorly focus on the geomorphology part. And the majority of the questions, the 50 or 60% of the questions in the geography comes from Indian geography only. Indian geography, and that too they are asking the match the following things. They can ask you the river and glaciers as a match the following. They can ask you the peaks and the hills which are in the glacier, which are the peaks and the hills. They can ask you the match the following. Or rivers and the tributaries, left bank tributaries, right bank tributaries, they can ask you. And they can also ask you the dams, the rivers and the dams which has been built on those rivers. So in these lines UPSC is working. Nowadays UPSC is asking in these lines. So even when it comes to the transport geography, we have a transport geography which has been focusing by UPSC. In the transport geography, they are asking the major ports near to the and what are the minor ports present near to it and how we differentiate between the major ports and minor ports. They are integrating it with the economy as well. In the economy, we'll study what are the major ports, what are the minor ports, and who deals the minor ports and who deals the major ports. So that's the thing UPSC is focusing on. They're trying to integrate the economy as well. And when it comes to agriculture part, agriculture is getting more weightage with the UPSC because they are asking more questions and more terms related to agriculture. So in terms of agriculture, you need to focus more on the crop side. So they are giving the description and they are trying to ask the crop, which is the crop in use. So last year they have asked about 210 frost-free days. So for which crops we need 210 frost-free days? So obviously the cotton was the answer. So like this, you need to understand the description of the crop. You don't need to mug up the things. Just there will be a unique fact about those crops. So that you need to remember the things. And even in the 2023, they have asked what is the most water guzzling crop? It was a sugar cane. So if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. So this is how UPSC plays with those questions. So just understand the unique fact about those crop. Those things UPSC is asking. Then when it comes to the agriculture part as well, they are asking the climatic zones as well. Like in which climate this crop can be grown, in which climate this crop can be grown. And when it comes to the other part of agriculture, they are focusing on the terms of agriculture. What is mixed farming? What is multiple cropping? What can be now they can ask you like what is zero budget natural farming? So then what is organic farming? So these type of questions can be asked by UPSC in the agriculture as well. And agriculture as a subject is both common in geography and economy as well. In economy as well, we have the the policies related to the economy, like MSP policy or FRTP policy, which is related to sugarcane. So and even nowadays for the top crops as well, like the tomato, onion and potato, they are going for Operation Greens as well. So the next time they can ask you why the onion prices has been rising. They can give you the reasons. You need to understand the reasons. So that's how they are trying to integrate the geography and economy as well. So this is how agriculture part has been focusing, and even agriculture is being integrated with environment as well. Like at what environment this crop can be grown, at what environment these things can happen. So this is how the things are going on. Then the most important part, which is focused by UPSC, is the minerals and the metals which are present in the India and world. So these things, like last year you can see the monazite deposits where it has been found, and previous year they have asked ilmenite and other things which are related to which ore. And these type of questions are continuously being asked. This year they can ask the question on the lithium deposits as well. Because the Geological Survey of India has found out the lithium deposits. They can ask you the lithium deposits. They don't ask the lithium deposits present in India. They can ask you the related to world geography. How much lithium, which is the largest producer of lithium, or what is the lithium triangle. So these type of questions can be asked in UPSC. So read out the things read out the minerals which are present majorly in India, or which has been in news in the last 1 year, which has been in conflict zones as well. And UPSC is also focusing on the rare earth metals as well. Rare earth metals is a new term which has been in news continuously. And rare earth metals you need to focus on, like whether these rare earth metals are present in India as well, or whether we are trying to import it as well. And when it comes to the energy part, in the geography energy part as well, nowadays in the COP28 as well, the things are focusing more on the energy efficiency. So UPSC can ask the questions on the energy part as well. How much energy efficiency can be achieved. Nowadays they are more analytical based questions, whether energy efficiency can be achieved through these options. They'll give you 4 options and they'll ask you whether this energy efficiency can be achieved through this as well. So these type of questions UPSC can focus. So this is how geography part there is minimum topics which you need to read. Because you need to figure out what are the topics which can be asked in prelims, which can be asked in mains for geography. Because geography, majority of the part is only for prelims. For mains, you need to read out the things which are in prelims only. So that's how we need to focus more on the geography part. So that's how geography is more important.
In continuation, extension to what you said, like how Charan Tejas sir said, the conceptual part, factual part, if you see, conceptual part mostly comes from physical geography, particularly how you said oceanography and climatology mostly. The conceptual part, reason behind ocean currents, reason behind winds, questions will come. Whereas factual part is most from Indian geography, where you identify plateau, glacier, a river, national park, means which national park, which tourism place is there, which plateau, these things. And those things, my advice is no need to go beyond NCERTs. Don't read too many rivers and tributaries. What are the NCERT is enough for the fundamental facts. Because you cannot even buy out those many rivers and plateaus or tourism places. Second thing, specifically they may focus on those which are in the news only. If that tourism place is in the news, or that river is in the news, or national park has been in the news, then they will most ask questions from that. Like that, you try to correlate with current affairs, focus on them. Even the map pointing also, you ask innovative map pointings. Which of the following places are in the same latitude or straight line? Such kind of questions will be coming. And the factual part, in order to buy out facts from world geography, in order to buy out much of the facts. The climatology, oceanography, or geomorphology, a lot of facts will be there. But they may be used in the mains or prelims in order to buy out all of them. This is about geography. And just like IR, how it is related to economy, polity, history and all. Geography also, economic geography like how is agriculture, industries, mining, economic geography will read. And the IR part of geography. Wherever IR news is there in the newspaper, all that geographical aspects, the map pointing you have to study. You are telling something, what is that?
Even
Environment also. Environment and geography, actually, it's a kind of combination. Sometimes we cannot identify we cannot identify whether it is geography question or environment question. Because in geography also you have biogeography and environment geography. So it's a good combination. That's why most of geography questions can be taken out as environment, IR, and economics. So finally, very few geography will be left. That's how geography is combination of all subjects.
So in the last 3 years, what UPSC has changed the pattern is, so previously UPSC used to give the elimination things, like only extreme statements it used to give. But from the last 2 years, it is trying to eliminate the elimination techniques as well.
Yes,
UPSC is trying to eliminate the elimination technique as well.
Yes.
Majorly, it was being used in geography. People are using in geography because it is a more conceptual thing. Only if it is only, we put it as wrong. But nowadays, there are things with only. So even like in the 2020 paper, they have asked Himalaya passes through only 5 states. Western Ghats passes through only 6 states. So this type of only is a true statement. But people thought that it was an elimination technique and they have eliminated
Yes,
those
this
things.
kind of techniques which were actually applicable in 2013, 2014, now most of them are not applicable. Science technology also generally till 2015-16, all the above is correct answer, science technology.
Yes, sir.
And worked very well in 2020-21 also. But now you cannot follow that logic, completely you cannot follow it.
And
Anybody?
one more thing.
Yes.
Sir. This is a very curious, very interesting concept, very interesting fact. So in 2024, most number of countries are going to polls.
Yeah.
Most number of countries in 2024. This will happen only 30, I think 30 or 35 years later only.
Yes, yes.
Especially major countries like India, US, and also Indonesia, Venezuela, especially Mexico. So all these countries are going to polls, including Britain. So maybe this can be related to some geography.
So that's how recently India has also started the Arctic expedition. First winter Arctic expedition has been started. So what we read is we read the fact that Arctic expedition is happening, but we need to dig further. We need to history of it should be known. Like what are the stations, major stations present of India in the Arctic region, and what are the Arctic things which India has already done. Whether India is part of Arctic Council or not, how it can be integrated to international relations. So these things we need to focus on. We need to dig further. We can't focus more on the headlines. We need to dig further on the topic. So that's how it is more important. So that's the thing.
Also, a follow-up point on that is any agreements that are done is also very important as far as these expeditions are concerned.
Yeah, true.
We have to study about the agreements in detail. In fact, previously UPSC never asked what is there in the agreement. Now specifically asking, giving 4 statements, which of them is there in the agreement also they are asking in fact. So regarding geography, any other points you want to add?
So as Sarat pointed out that UPSC is nowadays going into details about the various kinds of agreements that India is undertaking with other multilateral organizations or other countries. So practically speaking, sir, it is not possible for anybody to prepare all the things. So in such case, so we have to go back to basics. That is developing the intuition. What is our relation with this country? What is our relation with this organization? Or what is the direction in which India is taking the relation? So from that, you can be able to take an educated guess. Again, it is not a foolproof method, but it works majority of the times. That is how we have to go. In prelims, it is all about qualifying. It is all about being on the other side of the line. So whatever floats our boat. So we have to use our educated guess. So again, we have to come back to that education part. So that education part, which we get from current affairs, understanding the context of international relations, understanding the text of the agreement or the context of the agreement will help us in answering such questions, sir. Because practically speaking, these international agreements run to thousands or hundreds of pages. So we are not going to read all of that.
Yes.
But what we can do is develop such intuition that this can be there in this or this cannot be there in this. So for example, India-US agreements. So we are trying to...
That will understand, we are studying the summary of the agreement.
Yes, sir.
If you understand the summary of the agreement, 5-6 lines, you understand the basic idea of the agreement. Then what the clause they give options, is this point in consonance with the summary? Is this matching the ideology of the agreement or no? That's how you have to eliminate it. You cannot really buy at all agreements. Same thing like how we should discuss Chanakya philosophy or Gautam Buddha, agreement are the same thing. The fundamental ideology between India and US relations, what is it? India and Russia, what is there? So this cannot happen between India and Russia. In that way you have to eliminate.
Yes, sir.
So that's how the year-end reviews help, sir. The PAB year-end reviews are the summaries of the things that have happened in the last 1 year.
Yes.
So that helps because that solves our purpose. UPSC is focusing on those year-end reviews only. They're trying to give the statement on those year-end reviews only because that's the authentic thing. So that's how UPSC focuses on this.
Now, friends, coming to environment. Actually, environment has become more important in UPSC from 2013, from when Indian Forest Service and Indian Civil Services have combined the Prelims examination. Hence, mainly for the Indian Forest Service, we need knowledge environment. But along with that, UPSC also feels that environmental sense has to be improved among the bureaucrats. We should be very conscious because there is a constant debate between environmental conservation and economic development in the last decade. Hence, environmental questions have increased, not only current affairs but the static concepts also. Now we know from Suru Tejas who is presently teaching environment at our academy.
Yes, with respect to environment, I want to make it simple. I want to divide the environment syllabus into 3 phases. First phase is the basic concepts of environment and ecology. Second phase is environmental issues. Third phase is environmental governance, where we will discuss about important initiatives and important organizations and important steps taken by government of India and international organizations. Here, in the first phase, the basic concepts of environment and ecology. Here, first of all, we need to thorough about the definitions. First of all, most of the students don't know about the difference between ecosystem and habitat and ecosystem and biomes. So you need to be very clear. No need to remember about who coined the terms, but you need to be clear about the definitions. Later, and with respect to the functions of the ecosystem also, you need to read about the what are the stages in the ecological succession concepts also. Because ecological succession is important for mains point of view, but there are some important stages. First of all, primary succession is there, secondary succession is there. We need to read and discuss about. We need to read and we need to eliminate the technique that what is the difference between primary and secondary succession. Because primary succession is relatively fast when compared to primary. Secondary succession is relatively fast when compared to primary succession. So these kind of statements we need to remember. At the same time, with respect to energy flow also, nowadays there are no questions from energy flow, but you need to focus on that area also. At the same time, with respect to biodiversity, you need not remember about each species and each species in flora and fauna. But what are the things that they're in from last 2 years? You need to remember. For example, from 2021, I think from 2021, what are the steps taken by our government of India to conserve a particular species, whether it may be flora or whether it may be fauna. See, conservation technique and projects, you need to thorough about this. At the same time, with respect to environmental issues, no need to read about each environmental issue. But here, with respect to pollution also, nowadays the question may be like this. Consider the following statement with respect to marine pollution. There, they give one statement, what are the following the causes, next one is following the impacts. So you need to eliminate, once upon a time, the question, these marine pollutions or dead zones, they may be replicated in mains, but now the trend is completely shifted and there may be chances in prelims also. So you need to be very thorough. At the same time, in climate change is the most important chapter in environment. Here, you need to focus more on greenhouse gases. Once upon a time, they are continuously asking on which are the following are the greenhouse gases. But now, it is completely changed and they asked about the intensity of the particular greenhouse gases. Arrange the greenhouse gases in decreasing order and increasing order with respect to global warming potential. At the same time, you need to focus on carbon footprint of each of the every country. Here, Indian for carbon footprint is less when compared to other countries, but per capita footprint is less when compared to other countries, but carbon footprint is very high. So you need to be thorough. At the same time, with respect to ozone layer depletion, ozone layer also, you need to focus that particular area. At the same time, there are the questions on marine pollution recent days. At the same time, oil spills. You need to focus on these areas also. The third important phase, that is the most important phase. Most of the questions are from the third important phase, that is environmental governance. Here, you need to remember each initiative from different countries and different organizations. Recently concluded COP28, that is with respect to climate change. You must read that what are the decisions taken in that particular climate COP28 in Dubai, and not only simply go through what are the decisions taken in COP28, but you need to observe with the previous COP27. You need to analyze. See what are the differences, what are the different decisions taken from COP 27, COP 28. COP 28 is a little bit becoming landmark COP because here they take various important decisions like global stock take. At the same time, what is that? Green climate fund. At the same time, climate finance. There are various important initiatives taken. At the same time, even India also contributed various important things with respect to climate change. So you need to go through all of these things. At the same time, we need to focus more on IUCN initiatives. For example, traffic initiative. Recently, a traffic report highlighted that 50% of our penguins are in trade. We need to counter. So better to go through these reports. At the same time, sites reports. At the same time, recently leads initiative of our government of India. So better to follow what are the initiatives from past 2 years. Okay. So these are the things that I want to discuss. At the same time, the last important topic is the sustainable development initiatives by government of India. That is also very important with respect to environment point of view.
So I have a question here. Generally, most students get confused whether to remember all the important species which are endangered, threatened, because there are a lot of plant species, animal species, within animal, reptile species are there. So what do you think? Do you think how should go about by hearting all these things?
Yes, sir. Based on the suppose if you see from since 2021, what are the things there are news? You need to focus those things. For example, yesterday only there is a thing with respect to Great Indian Western. You need to focus, sir. You need to focus. You need not by heart all of these things, but you need to focus on more on what are the things that are there in news, sir. So that is very important. At the same time, I forgot to say that recently Indian Forest Survey report. At the same time, tiger census. You need to focus. At the same time, you need to compare because the question may be like this: there is a sudden decline of species from past 5 years. There is a sudden increase of species. So you need to compare. You need to know. Some students only focus on this year report only, but better to analyze with the previous year report. That is also very important, sir. I think so. At the same time, what are the different initiatives, different initiatives from NGOs also? That is also we need to focus, sir. Not only from government organizations. Also.
Yes, the large NGOs,
Yes,
which has more countries as a part of it. Part of it. Okay.
So I want to add few points related to the environment, where when is the species in news, how we need to focus on the species in news. So what we need to study about the species. When it comes to species in news, the major thing we need to study is whether it is part of India or not. That species is part of India or not. And IUCN, what is the status it has been given, and whether the site status what it has given, and Wildlife Protection Act, what is the appendix it has been given. Schedule, which schedule it is being focusing on. And when it comes to environment as well, there are specific acts related to environment in India. Environment Protection Act, Wildlife Protection Act. This has been recently getting amended, Wildlife Protection Act. So that can be a potential question. What are the schedules? What are the different schedules? And what is the importance of each schedule in this? And there are Biodiversity Act. So and recent Environment Impact Assessment as well, which has been amendment has been happening. So these sort of acts also UPSC is focusing on. The details of each and every act it should be focused on. And when it comes to international organizations as well, in the international organizations also you can't remember all the organizations. Just focus on the headquarter of the organization or whether India part of organization or not. These two things majorly you need to focus on. And you don't need to focus on everything, each and every detail of it. You don't need to read the objectives and everything of it. And when it comes to the major international organization, UNFCCC, you need to understand the summits where it has started, 1991 summit it has been started. From then, what are the different landmark summits which has been happening? Like COP21 was the Paris summit, where it has been taken the decision that we need to focus on the 2 degrees centigrade reduce. And recently COP28, as Surya has said, loss and damage fund has been operationalized. So these sort of things we need to focus more on, which are the landmark summit which has been happening like this. So this is the thing we need to focus on.
Also, I'm checking, you're talking about the reports, right?
Yes, sir.
If you come to the Ministry of Environment and Forest reports, it's a very large report. So they said that better we compare two reports and whatever new is there, focus on this. Along with that, do you have any ideas of how to go about the reports?
Sir, in the reports, the focus should be on the year-end review only. Because Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change will have their own year-end review. That will be not more than 30 pages. So if you focus on the year-end review, you can get all the environment things which have been happening in and around India. And the other thing is, when it comes to reports, it will be continuously, the report can be continuously in news. That will be asked by UPSC, not which is which has been hidden in the newspapers. So that will be not be focused by UPSC. In thus, you can focus on the environment.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. With respect to green fuels, also we need to focus more on the green hydrogen initiative. At the same time, a blue carbon initiative and biofuels policy and biocar. Recently, some education institutions are also involved in waste management techniques. For example, IIT Delhi, they made plastic into biocar. So these are the some advancements.
So technology part of environment is also important.
Important, the technology part also. That is also important.
In the technology part also, what they are trying to ask is whether this can be converted to that or not, whether it is possible or not, whether this can be happening or not. That's how the UPSC is giving options. So you need to think in the examination itself that whether it can be possible or not. Like how Sir has said intuition, whether this can be truly possible or not. Even they are integrating the science and technology with the environment as well. Like that they are giving the biochemical things as well. They are trying to give it like that. Biomagnification things as well, whether this can be happening or not. Through this technology, I can convert this thing to like this or not. So that thing you need to focus on those things, those kinds as well.
Yes, so bioremediation
Yeah.
techniques. At the same time, recently some different bodies are also in use. For example, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. At the same time, Wildlife what is the Justice Commission. These are not regular in use, but this year they are in use. So you need to focus those things because most of the people focus on only IUCN and what are the initiatives. Along with this IUCN and initiatives, we are going to focus on these bodies, different. Last year they questioned Wildlife Fund. So different bodies. So we have to focus on this.
Also, we should not miss the obvious. See, there are several books in the market, but in NCERT, 12th class, 11th NCERT biology, they have taken up some species, some animals, some plants, and the behavior of the animals. What is the behavior of these animals? Which is there in 11th and 12th class biology. In 2021 and 22, UPSC Prelims and Environment, they specifically gave the behavioral patterns of animals, the eating patterns, the sleeping patterns, which you should not be missing. So focus on that. Similarly, when you talk about science and technology also, the basic physics and chemistry of school, we know to study about all the things. Fundamentally, there are questions on reflection, refraction, internal reflection, some questions are there. The basic fuel cells of chemistry. So those fundamentals also you can give a quick reading of the basic NCERTs of physics, chemistry. Biology only 11, 12 is enough. That is also important for last year I think 5-6 questions have come from the same NCERT biology, basic animals questions have come.
And in species also, we don't need to focus on all the species. On which are in use, obviously we focus on. But which are critically endangered. The government is running a program, Integrated Wildlife Habitat Program. So in that there are only few 12 to 13 species. So you can understand those species very easily. So those things we need to focus on. So that will be easier for the students to understand those things.
At the same time, sir, we need to focus more on what is the progress of India with respect to climate change, with respect to biodiversity conservation. We need to focus those things also, sir.
So, as we are discussing about species, so when we are reading species, it is often very confusing for the students to remember: is it critically endangered? Is it a day animal or is it a night animal? Does it hunt by running behind the predator or is it an ambush predator? So these things the students often get confused, and rightly so. So to avoid this or to overcome this, what we suggest is whenever you encounter a species, so look at the picture of the species and then read the description, then picture it in your mind that this is running behind something, or this is sleeping in the den, or this is sleeping under the soil, or this is laying eggs in the sand. So picture the species doing different things. For example, we have olive ridley turtles. So olive ridley turtles are marine creatures. So they come onto the coast from the sea and then they lay their eggs on the coast. So imagine some children are playing on the beach and they have found olive ridley turtles. By seeing the children, the olive ridley turtles has went into the ocean. You know, if you create such pictures in your mind, you will never forget where is olive ridley turtle or where is it found, how does it look, can it run, so can it lay eggs or does it give direct birth. So these are the kind of questions that you can expect. For every species, you need to have certain mental pictures. So from our academy, so we are also trying to give a series on the rare and critical endangered species. Other than that, you can use that, but self-help is always the best help. So beyond our help, I want you also to do your own homework. So see the species. For example, Jaipur gecko is a species which is a critical endangered species, but found along Andhra Pradesh, Eastern Ghats. So if you see the species, it looks like a common household lizard. So imagine a lizard, so it's running around. So imagine what are the characteristics of lizard, and then you will never forget what is a Jaipur gecko. So That is how you need to remember species, because ideally if you go on reading species names, nobody will remember. But if you create a mental picture with that species chasing you, or chasing some children, or children chasing the species, or anything that will make you
Generally,
remember.
you can type that species and see all the images.
Yes.
For example, camels can swim actually.
Yes.
If you type the name, go through all images, you will see different things done by the animal. That's better.
So at comparisons also we need to do, sir. In the species also, last time they have asked a question on Asian and African elephant. Now we are focusing on African cheetahs. They can ask a question on Asian and African cheetah comparison. And they have already asked a question on the camels as well. Whether double humped camel or single humped camel, whether it is present.
Rhinos also.
So those things we need to focus on. The comparison part. Comparison part also UPSC is focusing on the species. So that thing we need to focus on.
Yeah, that is important environment. Now, coming to the last subject, but most important subject, economy. And I know that most of the students face problem in economy. Economy, there is no specific syllabus, concise syllabus like how you read for history or geography or polity. So hence, let us see for economy how to go about it. What are the focus areas? From Harish, who is handling economy at Sarat Chandra IAS Academy.
So, as Sir has rightly pointed out, economy is something very dynamic and very unpredictable in a sense. So, to cover that, we need to understand, so first, the philosophy behind reading the economy. So, as many people have experienced it, people think economy is very dynamic, rightly so, but people think or misunderstand that economy is mostly current affairs based. So, here, this is a nuanced perspective that students have to understand. First, the basic economic concepts like basic calculation of GDP, GNP, or what is repo rate, reverse repo rate. So this acts as the foundation for the economic course on which the current affairs build the superstructure. So people are looking at only the superstructure, but they're ignoring the foundation part. Without having core concepts, the economy part will be very, very difficult for the students. So to excel in economy, people should focus first on core concepts and then focus on integrating current affairs into the core concepts so that they can answer the questions. If you focus just on the foundation, there will not be any house. So if you focus just on the superstructure, the house will not stand without foundation. Similarly, the economic concept also, without current affairs, you will not be able to answer even half of the question. But if you read just the current affairs without focusing on the core concepts, you will lose everything. So what I suggest is that students first need to get strong or very strong with their core concepts. The questions may not come, but this act as a backbone for answering all the other economic questions. So always students should not forget that core concepts, even though they are not asked in the exam, they act as a foundation for everything that is going to be asked in the exam. So that's the first point students should always remember. The second point is, if you observe the economy, most of the questions will be coming from money and banking chapter. So money and banking chapter acts as the core of the economy topic for UPSC. And so to be fair and frank, that we keep these divisions, economy, geography, science and tech. So we keep these divisions, but UPSC doesn't keep any divisions. It will ask a concept based on its holistic nature. So it will ask a question on agriculture. One option will be from geography, one option will be from science and tech or the technology used in agriculture, and the other option will be the economic part of agriculture. So this categorization into compartments should be limited to only studying, but when it comes to taking tests or when it comes to answering questions in the UPSC, you should always take a holistic perspective, because in real life there is no subject division, or in UPSC Prelims also there is no subject division. The question will be as holistic as possible. The same way, students also should prepare in a holistic pattern to understand what is going on in the economy, because if you see the UPSC economy syllabus, it is not about microeconomics, it is about macroeconomics. It is always taking the whole country as a picture. It is always about the holistic picture. So with that regard, so students should always focus on the core concepts and then integrate with them current affairs, and then secondly, they should always take a holistic perspective on the economy. So regarding the topics of the economy, the first and the major topic that we have already mentioned is the banking and the money part. So we need to understand the simple concepts like what is money, how does the money circulation work, but the questions will not come from that. But the questions that will come are like, for example, you read about repo rate, reverse repo rate in our core part, then we will use that to understand the advanced concept like what is monetary policy transmission corridor, what is the impact of increase in repo rate on inflation. So such advanced concepts or the application of core concepts in the current affairs should be the main area of our study. So that should not be ignored. And after that, the another important part is banking regarding the governance of banks. So how the RBI is taking steps to regulate banking. So banking means the traditional banking, the insurance sector, the provident funds, and some non-traditional banking like finance, NBFCs, small lending organizations, or small finance banks or payment banks. Now, the new sector that has come up in banking is fintech or financial technology. For example, we use everyday phone pay, Google Pay. So all this work on India's tech infrastructure. So what is India's tech infrastructure? So based on UPI, payments or NPCI payments, all this work on India's tech infrastructure. So what is India's tech infrastructure, or is this model being replicated somewhere else? In banking and financial sector, we are trying to bring in revolutionary new products. For example, for credit disbursement, we are bringing credit networks or the sharing of financial information between different creditors so that the credit defaulters can be identified. So such concepts need to be understood, but these are the very important areas. So you always take the areas which are emerging, because UPSC also have this habit of looking 10 years into the future, 20 years into the future, or the initiatives which can propel India towards a developed India. So we need to focus our attention and energy into initiatives which are game changing for India. For example, UPI, when it is introduced, is a very small initiative, but now UPI is doing trillions of transactions every day. So that is the level of impact. So we need to understand what is this open networks, or open credit networks, or ONDC. So what are these networks and what are their impacts? So who are the partner banks? Who are the partner associations? So what is its impact going to be on primary sector, on industries, on manufacturing, on retail consumption? So we need to take a very holistic perspective, which is becoming of a civil servant. So, and the second part is the agriculture. Agriculture is still a backbone of our economy. So we are saying we have moved into service economy, but service economy is also dependent on agriculture for its raw materials, and agriculture forms an important crucial part of food security, which any nation cannot ignore. So that is very much evident in the way UPSC sets its paper, because every year there are some questions on agriculture, even though the share of agriculture in percentage of GDP is coming down, because that is very, very critical to Indian economy, and as a percentage population, a lot of rural India is still dependent on agriculture. So we should not ignore that. And again, coming back to my old point, that agriculture, or especially the primary sector, should be linked with geography or should be linked with environment while studying, so that you can understand the holistic perspective, because agriculture is a multi-dimensional topic which is related to multiple aspects of the economy. And after that, we have industrial sector. Now the government is very focused and very keen on making self-reliant India and making India into an industrial hub. So with that, we have taken a slightly different approach from China. So China is taken the approach of manufacturing cheap products, whereas India is trying to be a relay of global products. Rather than manufacturing the whole products, we are trying to assemble in the first stage. By that, we'll develop the capabilities to manufacture simple goods in the second stage. After that, we need to manufacture the complex goods in the third stage. So such philosophy, if you understand, it will help first in thinking holistically, second in eliminating the options, because India, as it is a developing country, has limited capability and finances. So when some option is giving that India has spent like thousands of crores on some niche product, so you can think of, will India do that? Can India do that? So this will give us in holistic thinking. And manufacturing, India is also taking the geopolitical tides very seriously. Now we are seeing the increasing separation of US and China. So regarding that, we are seeing an increasing focus on semiconductors in India. So regarding the manufacturing of semiconductors, we have given various incentives to various companies. We have brought in PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme. We have brought in electronics policy. So all these things add up. So we are also trying to revamp the CES Act. So making the CES more active into EEE. So economic opportunities conclave. So all these things should be seen in a holistic perspective. After that, the most important sector, or the sector which is providing the highest share to the GDP, is the service sector. So especially in service sector, we also need to look at health. Again, health is a topic which is split between economy and science and technology. So here also the options can be, one option can be science and technology regarding the disease, and the second option can be regarding Atmanirbhar Bharat or PM Ayushman Bharat. So different options can be combining different things. So we need to look into all of these things. And one other thing, especially in the state of Andhra Pradesh, is medical manufacturing, that we are providing a heavy emphasis. So we need to be very conscious about the impact and the cross linkages in economy while studying economy, because economy is a subject which doesn't have any limit. So in such a thing, in such an area, we have two guides. One is a syllabus, and the second one is a previous year question. Because these two are our guiding lights. When you follow these two, you will understand the repeated themes, because only few themes are repeated. So we cannot run around every question, every random question, because every year there will be some questions which nobody can predict. But we are not going to do that, because what we need to do, as Sarat said, we should not miss the obvious. So never miss the obvious. First, always about the obvious. First, get your basics right. After that, try to fly high. So if you are not able to walk, if you are not able to walk, then you are trying to fly. It is something very problematic. So students will always want to have that edge over other students, which is a very good thing. But if your basics is not strong, if your core concepts are not strong, so that is going to be a very disastrous thing. So one thing we all suggest at Sarat Chandra IAS Academy is always get your basics right. Always do the obvious things, because it is always exciting to do new things. It is always exciting to do the things which nobody does. But the most important thing we should not miss in UPSC preparation is to never miss the obvious. So that should always be your guiding mantra. Never miss the obvious. So get your core strategy right.
And
So
how
do
you
your
said
test.
the core strategy is very important. The core for all subjects, not only for economy, but the polity, everything, core is very important. Also, like how you said previously, exam practice is very important. For example, in the test series, Prelims test series that we are preparing, we fundamentally focus on three things. Number one, based on last 7 to 8 years of UPSC trend, whatever areas they are focusing, in test series also we focus on those things. Number two, instead of separating current affairs from static, like how UPSC is giving, every question of us is most integrated with current affairs and static. And number three is, for the students, generally should know the test series of the institutes and UPSC. The difference is that in UPSC there will be some simple fundamental questions. Out of 100 questions, at least 10 to 12 very simple, easy questions. You should face them also in test series. With that in the mind, our test series will have equal difficulty. Some 20 very difficult questions, 30 to 40 medium, some too simple in each subject. So with these three things, we have made test series, which you can access online as well as offline in Hyderabad, Vijayawada, and also crash course. We might have just now told you the important topics we need to focus on each subject. Focusing on the same topics, there is a crash course which starts February 2nd week. It will run for 45 days. In that, we will cover all subjects, particularly focusing on the high yielding areas. That's how it will be. And now coming to CSAT. CSAT, though, requires more practice, and it may be very difficult to tell which areas you have to focus on CSAT. My idea is that better to focus on all topics and practice more problems. And regarding CSAT, any one of you want to talk any points regarding CSAT?
So regarding CSAT, so the thing is, people try to divide the CSAT into two things. One is the quants thing and other one is English thing. So if you try to be good at quants, it can make you fool, because sometimes UPSC can give you the difficult questions in quants. So if you try to be good at English, it can also be a shocker for you, because UPSC can make the English also tougher. So that's why you need to balance the two things. For English, the majority of the people ask me that, for English, what material should I refer? Whether is there any reference material for English comprehension things? The only reference material we have is PYQs. PYQs. Every institute or any other institute, when they give the key, they focus on their own intuition and give the key. But UPSC intuition will be different when it comes to English comprehension. So that's why focus on the official UPSC key, which it has marked as an option in the English comprehension thing. Because that's how you can understand that UPSC is thinking on those things. So that's how you need to understand the pulse of UPSC when it comes to English passage things. So if you understand the pulse of UPSC, obviously you can mark all the English passages correct. But when it comes to quants, you need to focus on the high yielding topics which UPSC is focusing on, like time and work, or the things related to probability or these things. So these things are high yielding topics. And the number series. Number series, generally we think that we are very good at number series, but UPSC can fool you. So try to solve number of things related to number series or the coding or decoding things, which will be the easier part. Don't dig into the difficult part which takes time, because we have limited time in UPSC for CSAT. So focus on those topics which are very limited, and limited topics should be focused which can take limited time. So that's how we can focus on the things in CSAT.
And Harish, you want to add anything about CSAT?
So, regarding CSAT, as Sarat sir rightly pointed out, that you should not focus on one thing. So, like I told, CSAT stands on 3 legs. So, one is an aptitude, reasoning, and comprehension. So, comprehension is not English. So, you need not read synonyms, antonyms. So, that is not there. So, the idea of the CSAT English preparation is very different from the idea of preparing for SSC or banking or any other things. So this is where students face a lack of guidance, because whenever we try to do CSAT English, people look at videos of banking CSAT or banking English or SSC English or some other English which is different compared to the CSAT comprehension. So CSAT comprehension is about understanding the implications of a statement or understanding an assumption behind a statement. For example, recently the Modi ji or our Honorable Prime Minister said that India should develop a high functioning rapid public transport system by 2047 to become a developing country. For example, if you hear this statement, so if I ask you what is the underlying assumption, so what is the underlying assumption behind this statement? So people will say Modi ji wants us to be developed by 2047, or our Prime Minister wants us to develop a rapid transport system. But the underlying assumption is that the Prime Minister said that any developed country will have rapid public transport mass transit system. So that is the underlying assumption which he has not said, but he assumed everybody will know. So when reading CSAT passages, so this is the mindset you should develop. Behind every statement, there will be an assumption that the speaker is making to make his point. So the UPSC asks only 2 or 3 things. One is the implications of the statement, and the second thing is what is the assumption behind the statement. And the third thing is what is a naturally next flowing statement or corollary to the statement that is given. So to understand this, you can obviously refer to Sarat Chandra IAS YouTube channel. So where we have made a playlist on understanding CSAT English and understanding CSAT reasoning and understanding CSAT aptitude. Other than that, you need to have read the previous year question. So always we have 2 guiding stars. One is the previous year question and other one is the syllabus. And if you look at previous year question, look at the key of the UPSC and then understand why did this answer come up. Also, why this answer, why not the other answers. So from that you will guess or you will develop that intuition to understand the CSAT. And coming to reasoning part, when it comes to CSAT, you only need to get 33%. So for 33%, you need to answer only 1/3 of them. So in reasoning, there are very easy, obvious things. So first, we need to focus on that. So never, as we have discussed, you should always focus on the easy part, because CSAT, you answer a question, you just see the question. If you feel like you know the question, answer it or move on to the next question, because there are plenty of easy questions. And when we interact with our students who have given prelims, they often say that they have not passed 50 question mark, or they have not even read what is beyond the 60th question. So I want you all to read all the 80 questions, then understand which question you know, which question you don't know. So to that, how do you develop that skill? Through practice. So you join any reputed institute test series. So at Sarat Chandra also, we try to provide the best quality test series, trying to emulate the UPSC pattern. But it should always be a self-effort. So when you read the question, when you see the answer, understand why this answer is given. So that is the only thing that will help you in reasoning. For aptitude part, so this is where there is some overlap with banking. So there is some overlap with SSC. So there you can refer those resources also, but you can always understand the mindset of the exam. So I think this will be my suggestions. Anybody can add?
I have just quick one point to make with respect to the USP of Sarat Chandra IAS Academy Prelims course, that we have research being done with respect to selecting the questions, and the advantage of the institute is that director sir himself contributed with respect to cracking the way how we can clear the prelims, particularly with respect to 2022 paper, in which 2022 and 23 we have emergence of assertion and reasoning questions. and none of the assertion and reasoning question will have B as an option. Always it will be either A or C or D. This is coming from our research. And second thing, when there are 4 statements, if the options is 1 only, 2 only, 3 only, and if the D option is all the 4 or none, there is very high chance that none would be the answer. In this way, we have developed at least 6 to 7 techniques with respect to designing the test paper. This is not foolproof, this is not guaranteed, but this will just invoke a particular intuition in you to look beyond what is quite obvious, which might give you 2 to 3 marks, that will give you an edge in clearing the exam. So, adding to that, as a proof to what I have said before, you can go through economic questions where there was a question with respect to SHG movement started by SBA. If you know that it was started by NABARD, you can mark it wrong. And 2 questions in economy were repeated verbatim from 2020 to 23 with respect to the highly inflationary tendency, in which the D option would be with respect to withdrawal of 1 lakh as a DD from a bank, it has got no impact on N1 of the circulation of money. And second, highly inflation is because of printing of currency, which is deficit monetization. So economy is also having a trend with respect to repeated themes, and you can join the test series to further explore. Thank you.
Yeah. And finally, in the CSAT for English reading comprehension, definitely we have to start reading editorials, which will increase your reading speed and understanding capability. Because reading speed is the only thing that actually affects your score in the English comprehensions. So, having said about all the subjects syllabus, however, we haven't gone into details or much in detail. We try to touch upon the important topics you need to focus on the examination. Anything else to add, or can we end it?
So, regarding CSAT, one point I want to add is that students treat CSAT as one of the GS subjects, which is a very wrong idea, because we keep 10 days for quality, 10 days for history, 10 days for economy. So we keep such strategies, but CSAT cannot be done like that. CSAT is like an ocean that you have to swim every day. So every day you get up, you get into this ocean, you swim a little, and then that is how you will cross this ocean. So it needs everyday practice. This needs a practice for this 100 days. So every day you spend at least half an hour, or if half an hour is not possible, 10 days. But do not leave this topic untouched. So if you leave this topic untouched, you will always go back to the point of start. So do not do this mistake. This is one mistake that many aspirants do. Even we have seen at this academy that many aspirants do this mistake. They will keep the CSAT till the last, ignoring, which is something that is going to be very fatal in the examination. So we advise every day at least 10 questions practice or half an hour practice of one topic of aptitude, reasoning and comprehension. So do not ignore comprehension, because many of the students coming from non-engineering background, or sometimes seeing the trend of UPSC nowadays, even people from engineering background, or sometimes even people with mathematics or even previous rankers are unable to clear CSAT. So do not be under that false apprehension that I am going to clear CSAT because I am from
basically you have to practice. The fundamental idea is telling is you have to practice powers every day and read English every day. That is the fundamental thing you should do. You should not forget to do. Now, with these friends, I think it is useful for the candidates who are going to write prelims this year. In the session, whatever we have covered, try to focus on that, and definitely you'll be able to create prelims examination. All the best.